Here's the Guinness cheddar loaf. That is so delicious. Let me show you how to make Guinness cheddar sourdough bread. This dough takes longer than usual to bulk ferment, so I suggest starting first thing in the morning. We're going to whisk together 350 grams of cold Guinness beer and 120 grams of active sourdough starter. I fed my starter the night before so that it was peaked and ready to go here this morning. I like using a Danish dough whisk to get those two things mixed together, and then I'll go in with 300 grams of King Arthur bread flour. Any white bread flour is fine, and 200 grams of whole grain bread flour. I also think any whole wheat flour here is fine. This is just the one that I had on hand, and it was awesome if you're looking for one. Mix this with the Danish dough whisk or your hands until there's no dry flour bits left. For me, that usually takes about 3 to 4 minutes, and then we'll cover it up with plastic wrap or a damp kitchen towel and let it rest for 1 hour. This process of delaying the salt is called a fermentolyse. It gives the fermentation a jump start because salt actually slows down fermentation, and we're using cold beer. Anytime your dough is colder, it's going to take longer to ferment, so this just gives us a little bit of a head start. We're dimpling in 10 grams of sea salt with 30 grams of Guinness beer. I like taking this out of the bowl and doing some slap and folds on the counter. It helps the dough come together so much faster than continuing to squeeze it in the bowl. But the dough still felt a little too stiff to me, so I went in with another 20 grams of Guinness beer and again switched to slap and folds just to really get everything incorporated quickly. Don't be afraid to adjust the amount of liquid that you're adding to your dough to achieve the right texture. The exact brand and bag of flours that you're using will absorb the Guinness beer differently. So if you're not using the exact same brands that I am, you can expect to make some adjustments. Here's just an up-close view of the consistency and the texture of the dough that we're after. Then we'll cover the bowl and let it rest for about 30 minutes before we come back and grate about 200 grams of this Irish cheese. It is so delicious, and I like adding this during the stretch and folds by layering in a little bit of cheese, stretching the dough up and over the cheese, and just repeating that process until the cheese is becoming a part of the dough instead of being like layered inside. It's okay if the dough tears or rips in different places. That's totally normal. I'm just trying to get the dough to come together here. We'll cover it, come back in 30 minutes, and again, stretch and fold that dough so that the cheese really becomes a part of the dough. Again, we're going to cover the dough and come back in 30 minutes for one last round of dough strengthening. Instead of stretch and folds, I'm switching to coil folds, which is just lifting the dough from the center and draping it back down. And that's it. Now we cover it until the bulk fermentation is finished. Here's what the dough looked like. For me, it took about 10 hours, and my dough ended up at 74 degrees Fahrenheit. We're looking for a jiggly dough with lots of aeration inside, and this does take longer than regular artisan bread, so just account for that in your scheduling. Use your bench scraper to bring the dough into a round. This is called the pre-shaping, and we'll let it rest for about 20 minutes. Just in case I forget, the dough temperature, I just checked it, is 74 degrees, and our home is 72.5, 50% humidity. All right, now that the dough is relaxed after that 20-minute rest, we're gonna flip it and do the caddy clasp final shaping technique. You just fold the dough like a book, just like this, and you pinch the center seam together. There are a lot of different ways that you can do your final shaping, but this one I just find is simple and sweet, and everybody can do it. So feel free to deviate from this if there's another technique that you prefer. Just working on stitching that seam together so that there's no gaps in the bottom of the bread. I tend to overthink this part. You don't have to be so elaborate with it, but anyway, once that's finished, I like to dust the top with some rice flour to prevent sticking, and you can cover it with plastic wrap or just a flour sack towel like this and stick it in the fridge overnight. Here's the next day. I crumpled up some parchment paper and wet it under the faucet. That really softens the parchment paper so it doesn't stick or crease into the bread, and it also provides a little extra moisture in the Dutch oven, which gets you a more blistery, crackly, crispy crust, which I just love. Did a simple score here, just straight down the middle. That's going to prevent an ear from forming. If you want an ear, score it at an angle instead of straight down. We're baking this at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 to 30 minutes covered. Then you can top it with some cheese if you want. Just keep in mind with this recipe that this bread does take longer to cook all the way through than normal. So what I did is I put this back in the oven for 10 minutes, left the oven temperature at 450. I took the temperature and saw that it was not baking all the way through, but I didn't want it to burn. So I lowered the oven temp to 375, and it took another 10 to 15 minutes to bake all the way through, covering with foil to make sure nothing burned. and we're looking for an internal temperature of about 205 degrees Fahrenheit. Our Guinness cheddar loaf is finally baked. It's cooled down. I cannot wait to cut into this. It smells incredible in here. This would go so good with like a beef stew, even better if it's a Guinness beef stew. All right, let's cut this open. Like butter. Okay, ready? Oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. It smells so good. Oh, it's nice and soft. Yep. I love the addition of that whole grain bread flour in here. It makes it like deeper, I think, and it matches the Guinness perfectly. And you can see the little cheddar pieces are really evenly distributed throughout. Adding those during the stretch and folds really allows them to become a part of the dough instead of just kind of layering in without really becoming a part of it. I don't know, I didn't say that very well, did I? Okay, let's see, how are we gonna slice this? I think I'm gonna go this way. Sometimes I flip it and go this way, that's an option, but I wanna take pictures of this too, and I feel like these slices sometimes look prettier. And this loaf is also very easy to cut through. It's not a super hard crust. Not struggling at all. Oh my gosh. It feels incredible. Definitely watch the bake times. That took a lot longer to bake than I was expecting, but it's super easy. Just tent it with foil and lower your oven temperature, and you can pretty much bake a good while more than that without fear of it burning. This is a little dark on the outside, but some of that's also just because of the color of the Guinness. Makes the loaf more brown. I'm loving how this crust is softer. I don't remember that the last time that I made this, but I did make some tweaks this time. It's beautiful. You could also use a different cheddar. You can use yellow cheddar. I find that the brands Tillamook and Cabot are the best for inclusions. They melt really well. They taste the best. This one I decided to do the Kerrygold Dubliner cheese because it's Irish. The Guinness is Irish. It's a whole theme. But it does, the white cheese does kind of disappear a little bit more. Although I do see it in this loaf. Probably helps the contrast with the Guinness. Allows you to see that white cheese better than you would with the regular loaf. But yeah, okay. This is the best piece when it comes right out of the oven. So I'm gonna grab some butter. Let's give it a try. I wish I had Kerrygold butter. That's the butter that is the best. This is just store-bought butter, and you can taste and see the difference. So as soon as I run out of store-bought butter, just the store brand, I mean, I'm gonna switch to Kerrygold. But anyway, let's give it a try. Wow. That's insane. Oh my gosh. It doesn't taste like you're drinking Guinness or anything. Not that I think anyone would think that. It adds a deep complexity to the flavor that's so unique. And the whole wheat flour that we added, it's perfect in this. You get more of those wheat, like more complex wheat flavors. That is just, it pairs perfectly. And the cheese, it's sharp, it stands out. This is a winner. Hold on. Just gonna keep eating it. There we go, phone call ended. Hopefully it didn't mess things up too bad. This might be one of my favorite inclusion loaves. It's so good. It's so good. And it's easy. This is a super beginner friendly inclusion loaf. This and the Italian herbs and cheese inclusion bread recipe that's on my website, I feel like these two are very beginner friendly because there's nothing fancy you have to do. You're just swapping the water for Guinness and folding in the cheese during the stretch and folds. Easy. I know a lot of followers have been asking me to incorporate more whole wheat into my recipes, so I hope you love this one. 300 grams of regular bread flour, 200 grams of a whole wheat blend. It's so good. And it's not dense. It might look like that because of the crumb, but it's super fluffy and soft. It's incredible. And I love that flour that I tried, the whole wheat bread flour. Let me show you that again. It's this. I'll see if I can get a link for it and add it to the description. If not, just Google it. Cairn Spring Mills organic whole grain espresso flour, and it's espresso with an X. That's delicious. Earthy and rustic, it says. Absolutely, I'm totally getting that. That flavor really comes through. Wow, all right. Well, cheers. Buy you some Guinness. Let me know if you try this Guinness cheddar loaf in the comments and what you think about it. Happy baking.